Chapter 2, Concept of Disparity, Part 1. Introduction. The concepts of disparity and disability are often used interchangeably. However, it is essential to understand the difference between the two. Though the origin of both the terms comes from inequality, the nature of inequality and stratification is different in both the concepts. The term disparity means to be different. Gender disparity, for that matter, is the differences between the genders which are often treated as unequals. Disability is the condition of being unable, impaired to maintain equality. Disparity is often man made, but disability can be natural too. For example, women are physically weak and cannot do adventurous activity is a statement coming from gender disparity created by social systems. But a polio patient is unable to do adventurous activity is disability coming from a physical limitation. Gender disparity as a form of inequality. Gender disparity as a form of inequality is a manifestation of socio-cultural discrimination against women in the society. Physical difference between man and woman, which is biological in nature, is regarded sex. However, there is no hierarchy attached to the phenomena of sex. That is, biologically, being a man or woman does not attach superiority or inferiority to either of them. It is the socio-cultural norms and the structure of patriarchy that converts sex into gender and then associating it with power and authority to one at the cost of the other. The term patriarchy is derived from two words, patri meaning father and arch meaning rule. It means rule of the father or male domination, and it is the patriarchal structure of the society in general and of family in particular that creates gender disparity or gender bias. Gender disparity can be defined as a situation of unequal and hierarchical relations and the socially constructed roles or stereotypes assigned to women as that of a housewife and mother are considered as norms to be followed invariably across class, caste, race, and culture. This bias often leads to denial of opportunities and injustice to women. Declining sex ratio. Sex ratio is calculated as the number of females per thousand of males. Sex ratio of any country is not just a demographic variable but an important indicator of country's gender development index. And an adverse sex ratio reveals a lopsided social development and violation of human rights. India is one of those female deficit countries in the world where sex ratio is calculated per thousand of males. In most of the developed nations, sex ratio is always calculated as number of males per thousand of females, as there is a natural tendency of female fetus to survive longer than any male counterparts. Sex ratio in India has seen a declining trend since the turn of the century. The sex ratio, which was 972 per thousand of men in 1901, has declined to 933 in 2001. It has marginally increased to 940 in the year 2011. There is also a concept of child sex ratio that is calculating the sex ratio in the age group of 0 to 6 years, which is also declining drastically in India. From 976 in 1961 to 927 in 2001, and as per the provisional census report for 2011, it has further declined to a devastating 914. The sharp decline in the sex ratio is not evenly distributed in the country as well. Economically, affluent states and literate areas have lower sex ratio compared to the tribal and illiterate areas, where the sex ratio is much better. Urban areas are far more behind the rural areas. States like Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan are historically female deficit states and continue to be so. However, now even states like Maharashtra and Gujarat have joined the list of female deficit states with sex ratio of as low as 925 and 918 respectively in the 2011 census. Causes of declining sex ratio. Number 1. Sex determination and sex selective abortion. With the introduction of new reproductive technologies in 1970s in India, amniocentesis and ultrasound sonography was a big hit among the doctors and families expecting a child. Apart from knowing the abnormalities in the fetus, this technology also revealed the sex of the child, which helped the parents to determine the sex and abort the unwanted female fetus. This is considered to be the major reason for declining sex ratio. Number 2. Female infanticide and feticide. Several Indian states historically were known for its practice of female infanticide. With the idea of girl child being a burden to the family, there was a rampant elimination of female infants through various practices like doodh piti, which is drowning in milk in Gujarat, suffocating the child, consumption of opium seeds, etc. After the new reproductive technologies were available, the heinous practice shifted from infanticide to feticide. Number 3. Son preference and patriarchal value system. The patriarchal system reinforces certain norms from Indian religions and cultures. Son is preferred in an Indian household for social, economic, and religious reasons. He is considered to be the breadwinner and a support to the parents in their old age. It is also believed that son continues the family name and the lineage, which is Vansh. According to the Hindu tradition, a son is required to ignite the funeral pyre of his parents for them to attain salvation. These myths and beliefs expects to have at least one son in the family, and with a small child norm or one child norm in urban educated families, daughters are eliminated to maintain the family size and structure. Number 4. Dowry and burden of marriage cost. Dowry is the gifts in terms of cash or kind given by the bride's parents to the groom's family. The high demands of dowry converts a girl into a liability for her parents, and marrying a suitable groom becomes a burden. With increasing cost of marriages, which are forced to be borne by the bride's family alone, and ever increasing evil of dowry practice are the root cause of considering a girl child in the family as a commodity to be disposed through infanticide or feticide to avoid the financial burden later. Number 5. Lower nutritional and health status of women. Biologically, female fetus are stronger to sustain illness or escape miscarriages, but later the cultural inequalities end up in women of the house eating less, leftover, and the last making her susceptible to low nutritional value and low health status. Early and unsafe pregnancy, lack of maternal and postnatal health care all result in high female mortality rates leading to a low sex ratio. Number 6. Absence of stringent implementation of PCP NDT Act. In 1994, to prevent the practice of sex determination and sex selective abortion, preconception and prenatal diagnostic technique, regulation and prevention of misuse was passed in 1994, which was later amended in 2003. It prohibited the sex determination before or after conception, prohibiting advertisements and revelation of sex by any medical practitioner in any form. Under this act, several raids were conducted and sonography machines were sealed. Licenses were cancelled in the last decade. But so far, no doctor has been convicted or imprisoned. The law is not being implemented stringently and still contains many loopholes, making it weak in bringing solution to the problem. There are dangerous consequences in the society due to declining sex ratio. It has caused a serious imbalance in the gender balance and increase in violence against women in India. Violence against women. Meaning and forms. India has always lived with a paradox with glorifying women as the goddess which is a Devi, on one hand and giving a devil treatment on the other. From cradle to death, or from womb to tomb, she is subject to discrimination and stepmotherly treatment. At every level of her life, in all the institutions of family, like marriage, religion, education, economy, law, media, and politics, she faces the brutal exploitation from the pre existing and omnipresent structure of patriarchy. Meaning of violence against women VAW. United Nations Declaration 1993 defined violence against women as any act of gender based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, psychological, or sexual harm or suffering to a woman, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or private life. This is an inclusive definition of VAW, which is violence against women. The violence of her basic human rights often takes place in various ways. It may take form of sex determination and sex selective abortion, neglect of infant and girl child in areas of nutrition healthcare, illiteracy and dropouts, underestimation of household work, inequality and harassment at workplace, dowry and related harassments including bride burning, sexual assault, rape, religious rituals, cultural practices, misrepresentation in media, and many others. According to the National Crime Records Bureau's facts, these are some of the facts stated below. For example, every 3 minutes there is a crime against women. Molestation happens every 15 minutes. Sexual harassment every 53 minutes. Rape case every 29 minutes. 4 out of 10 women in India face violence in their homes. A woman is killed for dowry every hour. Forms of violence against women. Violence against women can be classified broadly into three categories, which are domestic violence, criminal violence, and social violence. Number 1. Domestic violence. The violence which takes place within the household or by a known perpetrator is considered to be domestic violence. Wife beating, wife battering, dowry harassment, emotional torture by family members, sexual abuse, marital rape, deprivation of basic necessities, discrimination in the family, and denial of economic rights are all a part of domestic violence. Number 2. Criminal violence. The act which are considered to be criminal and punishable under Indian Penal Code IPC termed as criminal violence. They are rape, molestation, trafficking of women, sexual harassment at workplace, bride burning, abduction and kidnapping, eve teasing, female feticide or infanticide are all part of criminal violence. Number 3. Social violence. The violence which women face due to societal norms and religious practices are part of social violence. It includes sati, prohibition of widow remarriage, child marriage, devdasi, denial of entering or worship at religious places, atrocities against women in the name of caste, community, etc. Some of the forms of VAW, which is violence against women, are discussed as follows. Wife beating and battering. The physical torture a woman undergoes at the hands of her husband or in laws is one of the severe kind of violence against women. It often leads to physical injuries, loss of limbs, and sometimes even loss of life. Dowry demands and intoxication are the major reasons for the same. Dowry deaths and bride burning. Continuous and ever increasing demands for dowry by in laws or husband are a cause of great suffering for women and a curse on Indian society. Young newlywed girls are burnt or brutally killed for the sake of dowry, which is then depicted as a case of suicide. Sometimes the brides do commit suicide as an escape from the torture in the marital homes. Discrimination and sexual harassment at the workplace. As mentioned earlier, 40% of women have faced the harassment at workplace. With increasing number of women going out to work and contributing to the national economy, there is an increase in the harassment at workplace. Inequality in the wages, denial of promotion, or asking for favors for sexual nature by the authorities or colleagues has become a regular feature of urban economy. Rape and molestation. One of the most atrocious crimes against women is rape. In more than 60% of the cases, the perpetrator is a known member to the victim. The ordeal of the victim continues even after the act, where the society and legal system continuously blame and question her for her character and loss of virginity. Most of the cases do not register in the court of law due to the fear of social stigma attached to the act of rape. Abduction and kidnapping are generally followed by rape and murder. Eve teasing. One of the crimes which have not yet been taken seriously till date is eve teasing. It can range from lewd comments or whistling to acid attacks or molestation. Public transport, public spaces like parks, gardens, railway stations, or even open spaces have become the home ground for eve teasers. Ignorance or neglect is the general tools used by girls, which can later have serious repercussions. Trafficking of women. Buying or selling of girls for slavery and sex trade is a serious crime that needs a mention. Women are used as slaves and tortured physically, mentally, or sexually by their buyers. Sex trade and sex tourism is rampant at national and international level where women are used as sex toys. Poor families sell their girls to repay their debts in developing nations. Measures against violence against women. There are several government and non government organizations working towards gender equality and fighting against all form of violence against women. Following are some of the landmark legal measures and acts pertaining to women's rights. In the year 1829, abolition of Sati Act was passed. 1856, the Widow Remarriage Act. 1871, the Female Infanticide Prevention Act. 1929, Child Marriage Restraint Act. 1934, the Devdasi Prevention Act. 1961, the Prohibition of Dowry Act. 1971, the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. 1994, PCPNDT, Regulation and Prevention of Misuse Act. 2005, Domestic Violence Act. 2007, Sexual Harassment at Workplace Bill. There are several articles in the Indian Constitution which promise equal rights and liberties to each and every woman in India. There are special provisions for women in terms of positive discrimination or affirmative action in terms of reservation of women in local self government, educational institutions, job opportunities, and public transport. There are a number of government bodies, NGOs, and civil society organizations helping women to gain justice and equality in the society. They work in the areas of research, sensitization, awareness, lawmaking or amendment in the existing law, campaigns for empowerment of women. There is a special ministry for women and child welfare at the center and state to look into the policies and programs for women in the nation. The National Commission for Women, which is NCW, is the statutory body of Government of India at the central level that looks into the matters pertaining to gender justice. Portrayal of women in media. Media is a plural form of medium. Media is a unit through which messages, information, data, thoughts, and ideas are transmitted or communicated. Mass media is a form of media where transmission and communication takes place across society to large number of people at the same time. Media can be classified as print media, which includes newspaper, magazines, journals, pamphlets, leaflets, printed advertisements, etc. Whereas audiovisual or electronic media includes television, films, radio, computers, and internet, etc. Since these tools of media communicates to masses at the same time and over a period of time, its content and ideas have a great influence on society's mindset. Media has been used to change the perception of society. Hence, portrayal of women in media definitely influence and shape the ideas and perception towards women in that society. Media can create awareness and sensitize people regarding issues pertaining to women. An affirmative image portrayed in media creates a positive environment towards women, and traditional stereotyped image can create a degrading status of women. Positive role of media. Number 1. Awareness and sensitization. Media, especially newspapers, journals, and news channels, help people to become aware of current scenario and status of women in the society. It can analyze problems of women and make its readers or viewers sensitive towards the same. For example, recent television show Satyamaya Jayate to some extent has covered several issues pertaining to women, or at least reporting on cases of violence against women with great sensitivity, spreading the information regarding policies and programs for women. Number 2. Highlighting achievers. Women's achievements can be highlighted in the fields of science, technology, education, economy, industry, entertainment, art, literature, music, social work, or politics. For example, making story of Kiran Majumdar Shaw as an industrialist or on Lata Mangeshkar as an artist create a positive image of women in the minds of people. Number 3. Strong women characterization. There can be strong women characters in television serials or films becoming ideals for its viewers. Negative role of media. Number 1. Women as sex symbols. Women in India have been misused as a sex symbol for selling products in the advertisements or providing entertainment in the TV shows or films. Women in skimpy clothes become an object to ogle up on, and her sexuality becomes the only facet of her personality. Number 2. Beauty pageants and Western standards. Rampant beauty pageants, where woman is seen as a model with an ideal face and figure, often misjudge her as a dumb character or beauty without brains. Western standards of fairness and slim figure have become a craze amongst young Indian girls thanks to media. Number 3. Stereotypical image. There is a stereotypical image portrayed as either an ideal Bahu or a daughter who is vulnerable or a vamp that is cunning or shrewd, reinforcing conventional roles of women confined to households and private spaces, following customs and rituals, further propagates traditional mindset and attitude towards women in the society. Conclusion. World over, with the advent of globalization and liberalization, the status of women is changing. The disparity between men and women is decreasing, with women being economically and socially advanced. However, she still faces many problems and discrimination of different kinds, and which needs to be addressed with the help of legal measures and renewal of her role in media. There is a call for restructuring the patriarchal system and attitude towards women. Disability as a form of inequality. An inability to efficiently cope up with the day to day activity can be referred as disability. It is impairment that may be physical, mental, cognitive, sensory, or emotional, restricting the individual in its daily routine. Generally, disability is often replaced by the use of the terms handicapped or challenged. But disability has a more affirmative connotation and does not cripple individuals' acceptance in the society in terms of opportunities. There are also terms used like differently abled than disabled, especially in terms of mental disability. We are broadly classifying the disabled as physical and mental disability. Physical disability, that is, visual, auditory, and orthopedic. A person who is unable to perform normal physical activity in the day to day life due to some impairment is called physically disabled. It is further divided into three types based on the deformity in a particular organ. Those with deformity of vision are called blind or visually disabled. Individuals with problem of speech and hearing come under the category of auditory disabled or deaf and dumb. Those with loss or deformity of limbs are called orthopedically disabled. In India, of all the disabled, there are around 49% who are blind, 13% who are deaf, and 28% who have orthopedic disability. Malnutrition, ignorance, and inefficient medical faculties are major causes for physical disability in our country. Visual disability. A person whose vision is totally or partially lost or whose vision is 6 out of 60 or less are called blind or visually disabled. Blindness is a major disability amongst all forms in India. Causes of blindness. Number 1. Cataract. In spite of mass awareness programs conducted an easy treatment for cataract, it is one of the major reasons for blindness in India. It is associated with old age and can be easily cured with a simple surgery or laser treatment. Number 2. Glaucoma. Pressure on the cornea leads to this kind of disease which might lead to a partial or complete blindness. Number 3. Trachoma. It's a poisonous kind of conjunctivitis that is caused by bacteria. If not treated immediately, it can cause spread of this disease as well as loss of eyesight. Number 4. Night blindness and color blindness. Lack of vitamin A causes night blindness, that is loss of vision after sunset, and lack of nutrients and genetic disorder can cause color blindness. Number 5. Accidents. Eyes are one of the most delicate body organs. Injury of any kind to the cornea or retina can be dangerous to the eyesight. Number 6. Other diseases. Hypertension, diabetes, or stroke can be the cause for partial or complete blindness. Treatment. Based on the causes for blindness, it can be treated accordingly. Treating the disease that has caused loss of eyesight, like hypertension, diabetes, or nutritional deficiency, can be cured with medication. Timely surgery for cataract can also save the patient from blindness. Cornea transplant are also possible in case of injury or genetic disorder by birth. Auditory disability. A person who is unable to hear a sound of 30 decibel can be considered as deaf. The person with speech impairment and stammering are considered to be dumb. Those who are deaf by birth are dumb as well, as they haven't heard the sounds required to be able to speak and converse. Types of deafness. Conduction deafness. Defect in the eardrum or middle ear causes this kind of deafness. Nerve deafness. If the connecting nerves get damaged or weakened due to old age or other reasons, then nerve deafness can occur. It is caused due to damage to the basilar membrane. Causes. Genetic disorder or hereditary. German measles to pregnant women. Overdose of antibiotics. Inefficient treatment in jaundice, meningitis, viral infections can lead to deafness. Accidents or severe injury to inner ear, eardrum of nerves joining ear and brain. Continuous or sudden exposure to high decibel sounds near airports or a bomb blast or in industrial setup with high decibel sounds can also lead to partial or total deafness. Infection or inflammation of ear can cause deafness too. Treatment. Depending on the root cause for deafness, deafness can be controlled or cured in some cases, or in cases of total loss of hearing, hearing aids are available to enable hearing. Speech therapy in case of stammering or dumbness helps the patient where the communication can take place through the use of sign language. Orthopedically disabled. Inability to use one's hands or legs for motor functioning or loss of limbs can be included into orthopedically disabled. Deformity of hands, legs, spinal cord, muscles can all be included in this type of disability. Causes. Number 1. Polio. The virus of polio damages the limbs and causes paralytical condition in the body. It affects the patient in the childhood. India, to a great extent, has overcome this problem with vaccination. However, there are seldom instances of this disease. Number 2. Spinal bifida. Underdeveloped spinal cord or damaged spinal cord lead to spinal bifida. Movement controlled by spinal cord becomes impossible, making patient immobile and dependent. Number 3. Cerebral palsy. The part of the brain which takes care of motorable activity of a human being, if affected adversely or not developed to its optimum level, can lead to cerebral palsy. Number 4. Muscular dystrophy. Muscle fibers in the body gets weakened, then the body gets affected with muscular dystrophy. Number 5. Accidents and injury. They can always result in loss of limbs or deformity of limbs. Treatment. Regular vaccination should be given for preventing polio. Physiotherapy and occupational therapy can also help patients to be self-reliant in their daily course. Artificial limb like Jaipur foot helps in movement for those who have lost limbs. Mental disability. Levels and types of mental disability. When a person loses the capacity to think independently and rationally, whose intellectual levels are not developed, then the person is called mentally disabled. Individuals with an intelligent quotient, which is IQ, of less than 70 can be considered as a mentally retarded or mentally disabled. Levels of mental retardation. On the basis of IQ levels of an individual, the mental retardation is analyzed at 4 different levels. Level 1. Mild mental retardation. An individual whose IQ is between 50 to 70 is called mild mentally retarded. These children can complete their primary level of education comfortably, but have problems of concentration and analytical ability, which is very low. Level 2. Moderate mental retardation. Individual with an IQ between 35 to 50 is called moderate mentally retarded. They can't take a formal education and need support of their family members to do their daily chores. They can be made independent with some basic technical skills and can be made self-reliant in their own health and safety. Level 3. Severe mental retardation. Persons with an IQ of 20 to 35 are severely mentally retarded. Their learning ability is very limited and need close supervision and a support of a family member in their daily lives. Level 4. Profound mental retardation. Individuals with an IQ lower than 20 are profound mentally retarded. They can't be kept at home and need intensive treatment at an asylum or mental hospital. Types of mental retardation. There are several types of mental retardation or mental disability. Number 1. Down syndrome. It is a genetic disability in which there is a problem in the 21st pair of chromosomes. Number 2. Autism. The part of the brain dealing with communication is damaged, then it can lead to autism. Eye to eye contact, conversation, and sometimes even basic motor abilities get affected. Number 3. Psychosis and neurosis. Split personality, hallucination, and schizophrenia are all types of this disorder. Number 4. Learning disability. Dyslexia, dysgraphia, or dyscalculia are all part of learning disability. The learning capacity of an individual in this type of disability is slow and needs special methods for learning. Treatment. Psychological counseling, behavioral therapy, occupational therapy can all help the patient to lead a normal life. Special schools and shelter homes provide them skills in art, handicrafts, or other technical skill that enable them to be self-sufficient and confident. Training and social adjustment through skills for safety, security, and hygiene make them more acceptable and adaptable in the family and society. Conclusion: a disabled, may it be physical or mental, should not be considered as a burden to the family or society. By just giving sympathy, it is not going to solve their problems. Helping them to be respectable and self reliant members of the society should be our aim. Providing them with educational and occupational opportunities should be at the helm of all policies and programs by the government. NGOs can play a very constructive role in the prevention and cure of disability by joining hands with medical fraternity. Unit End Questions. Question number 1. Write a short note on violence against women. Question number 2. Differentiate between sex ratio and child sex ratio. Review the problem of declining sex ratio in India. Question number 3. Discuss disability as a form of inequality with reference to mental disability. Question number 4. Classify the category of physically disabled.